Have you guys ever wondered how to get into hotels when they're fully booked, or how people suddenly get random upgrades just by chatting it up with the front desk? We brought on our good buddy who works at a high-end luxury resort in Florida. He came on to tell us travel tips for shows like the National. When it looks like all the hotels are booked and you can't get anything, he's here to tell you some hacks that will help get it done. He also shares some great stories about how the players behave when they're at these high-end hotels, what they order, and I think you guys will enjoy it.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Sports Card Madness. I am LZ, and I'm here with Nick. And today, I'm excited because I have one of my best friends joining the show today. And he is going to talk to us about the hospitality industry. Many of us are heading to the National, or we're heading to other big, large card shows, and we need hotels. We know these hotels are selling out. And Mike is here to kind of tell us just all about that, the hospitality industry, maybe some tips and tricks and what have you. So introducing Mike Oakes, my very good friend, grew up together, was in my wedding. He is a longtime hospitality industry executive, working for some of the best hotels in the biggest cities. He's currently the VP of Sales and Marketing for Palm Beach down in Florida, which is a beautiful resort that I had the opportunity to visit a few weeks ago with my family. Had a great time hanging out with Mike, who I don't see as much as I would like to. But Mike, welcome to the show. Happy to have you on, man.
Welcome, Mike.
Hey, thanks, LZ. Nick, nice to see you again. Super excited to talk two things I'm passionate about today: hospitality and sports. What a better connection.
Excellent.
Yes. Mike, I'm sure we all had one of these friends like growing up. Mike was the friend who was like so obsessed with sports that like didn't watch anything else. Like you'd want to like talk to him about Seinfeld, or you'd want to talk to him about a movie, and Mike was just locked in watching the Sox, the Pats, the Celtics. And yeah, we can't wait to get into it with him. But Mike, let's just start by just giving you the opportunity to introduce yourself to the audience a bit more than what I did. Like, how long you been in the industry for? Just give us your background.
Sure. And Larry, thanks for the intro. And I'll start with something that you might not even know. I went to UMass Amherst to attend the business school. And at that time in the summers, I was working at the stadium, right at the Patriot Stadium. And as you both know, and many of the listeners know, that entails a lot of nights, a lot of weekends, a lot of long days. And I thought to myself, yes, so cool working at the stadium. Live events is something I'm passionate about. Being within all that energy is amazing. You know, rubbing shoulders with a lot of people in media at a young age is fantastic. But my biggest takeaway was I don't get to watch the game. I don't get to watch the game. And that kind of stuck with me through college at UMass. And as much as I loved sport management, which was my actual major, for some reason, a couple friends of mine told me to look at some electives in the hospitality industry. And I think I was sitting in class for about 90 minutes. And I thought to myself, like, all right, this could be for me. Like there has to be a way where I can work with people, work with different types of events. At that time, I didn't know it, but I love to travel. At that time, I didn't know it, but I fell in love with hotels and hospitality in general. And now, fast forward 20 plus years, you know, I have friends with the airlines. I have friends with the cruise ships. I have friends with huge media companies. Yes, I still have friends that work in sports and work in athletics, whether it's, you know, the NCAA, professional sports, minor league baseball. You know, the list goes on and on. But there's such a connection. There's such a crossroads between, you know, media, hospitality, and sports that I don't think very many people know of. And I think when you approached me with this subject, you know, I thought to myself, man, I could probably talk about this for about 3 hours, but I'll have to condense my thoughts because I think there's a lot of elements to what you're going to in Cleveland that I live each and every day.
LZ wasn't kidding. I think we're talking to the right person here. I mean, just a teaser for the audience. We're going to have all kinds of little hacks and questions about, you know, tips and tricks with hotels later on. But before we do that, you actually brought up conferences, which is kind of under your umbrella at this hotel. And we're talking about the National, which is a massive, massive card show. It's the biggest card show in the world. It takes place over 5 days. Typically, it alternates between Cleveland and Chicago. Sometimes it's in another random city like Atlantic City. This year, it's in Cleveland.
Hmm.
We're going to be there. And I was kind of curious, from your perspective as a hotel owner, when a big show like this shows up with, potentially 100,000 plus people, what does that mean for the local economy and specifically for just the hotels within that economy?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a really good question, and that's pretty much my day to day, right? My scope and my property were about 300 rooms, so we don't per se like play in the large convention space, but I'll speak to it from kind of more of a macro level. If you think about some of the big destinations domestically, you both might know this, but Las Vegas has over 150,000 hotel rooms, right? And some of them are 2-star, and some of them might market themselves as 6-star, right? There's a big gap. Orlando has over 100,000 hotel rooms. New York City has over 100,000 hotel rooms. I think Boston might have about 40,000. Just to give you kind of the scale on that. And a lot of these conferences and events, and you could speak more to the logistics on your trade show, but some of them might book 12 years in advance. Some of them might book 15 years in advance to try to get the preferred space and the preferred city and the preferred location. One of the things that I found interesting about your show, just doing a little homework, is, and you can tell me if I'm incorrect, but Cleveland and Chicago, you have international airports, right? And
Hmm.
think about how much of the country
Mm.
can drive to Cleveland and Chicago. If you're doing a conference in Miami, in Las Vegas, in San Francisco, you can capture a big market via Delta, American, United, Southwest, the list goes on and on. But when I pulled up the map of Cleveland and Chicago, I mean, there's a big piece of the country where that's within like a 6-hour drive, which
Good
is
point.
which is really important.
Huh.
Not everyone can stay at a Ritz-Carlton, right? Not everyone can stay at a really nice hotel. Um, and when I was looking at Cleveland over the dates of your conference, I mean, there's hotels from 125 and there's hotels from 1450. So it seems like, kudos to the team for picking a destination that, yes, people can fly to, which I'm sure you will from Boston. People can drive to from places like the outskirts of Cleveland,
Mm.
Nashville, Indy, the list goes on and on. And you have cities like a Chicago. Chicago's an internationally known, top tier city, top tier city. So I think the organizers of the show obviously have done their homework and they've picked destinations, based on what we just talked about. But it's a huge deal. I'm not sure if people really understand um, how important these associations or these conventions are to a certain city. In a lot of luxury hotels, you have 2 employees to every occupied hotel room, right? So
Whoa.
if you're thinking
Wow.
about 50, yeah, in luxury, it's not the same math for like a 2-star hotel or a
Hmm.
3-star hotel. But if you just want to do some quick math, right? If you're, one of the biggest shows that goes to Vegas every year is called CES. I think they bring over 100,000 people to Vegas the first couple weeks of January. If you do the quick math, if you have 1.5 or even 2.0, hotel workers per se per occupied room, think about the think about the exposure and the movement you're doing to like a local economy in a city like Las Vegas.
Wow.
And LZ, like when you told me how many people were coming to Cleveland, like I was blown away.
Yeah.
I was blown away. My mind was thinking about, the contracts that are in place, the people that clean the rooms, the people that work in security, because there's a lot of, when people travel, right? You see the front desk, you see the bartender, you might even see your housekeeper, but resorts that are really big and hotels in cities like Cleveland and Chicago, you're going to have dozens of people that work in facility management. You're going to have IT people. There's what we call the back of the house staff. That's like the heartbeat of the hotel that I think a lot of travelers don't really understand. And when you're bringing a convention like this to Cleveland, you're funding that economy for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days, however long the conference is going for. And I would be willing to bet that a lot of people might even come to Cleveland with their families. And when the conference is over, I think I could probably say that some of them are probably going to go downtown, stay at a hotel, go to a game, go to a restaurant, bring the
Yeah.
kids, maybe go look at a college, or maybe even take their car and drive to another city within a 100-mile radius of where the convention is actually taking place. So the layers and the detail behind these conventions is absolutely massive. And without it, the local economy would take a huge hit.
Mike, you just brought up so many things that I didn't think about, right? When me and Nick thought about having you on, I was like, oh, we're gonna have Mike on. We're gonna focus on what it's gonna mean to Cleveland, and obviously it means a lot to Cleveland, but yeah, it's like 100-mile radius around Cleveland too. It's
Yeah,
probably who it helps as well.
yeah,
And then that ratio of employees is just bonkers. Like, you didn't mention it, but I will. I mean, the Palm Beach is a 5-star hotel, so yeah, you guys, I'm sure, are definitely pushing that 2-person limit, if not more than that. So wow,
mhm,
The
yeah,
ability
that's
to
incredible.
drive is something cool I didn't think of because a lot of people that are going to the national, like, yeah, I'm driving from Texas. I even looked on
Hmm.
my phone. I'm like, LZ Cleveland's not that bad, right? Just for the, the hell of it. If I wanted to drive, and yeah, it's like 9 hours. The way I drive is probably 7, but not too bad from Boston. So
yeah.
it's
And think
interesting.
about your clientele, right? They might check and see if there's an Indians game in the area or
Yeah.
if there's anything going on in the summertime. And I would think that, it sounds like your conference is usually in the summertime. So
Mhm.
it might be a little bit easier for people to get away with kids. And I'm always blown away by the Midwest. Like Nashville is like the fastest growing hospitality destination, and it's been that way for like 12 years now, which is mind boggling. And that's a second story. But you can drive to these cities like Nashville and Cleveland and Indy, and even Chicago from so many
Hmm.
destinations. And let's be honest, no one likes to connect these days, and airfare is very, very expensive. So if you can hop in the car for 6 or 7 hours, it might be worth it to drive. And I think a lot of people that make these decisions on conferences and events really put that, if not at the top of the list, it's a top 5 driver on actual decision making on picking locations for different types of events.
Huh.
Yeah, that's cool. Switching gears a little bit, and I want to actually just go back to something that you said at the beginning when you were kind of introduced yourself, talk about your history. You mentioned like all the different types, like walks of life people that you've met over your career, which I just think is
Mhm.
awesome. And me being one of your good friends, I do have the luxury of you sharing some of these incredible stories about people that you have met over your career. Do you have any cool stories? Maybe it's related to, I mean, this is typically a sports card collectibles show. We talk about celebrities too, actors and actresses, and music a little bit. But do you have any cool stories that maybe you could share with the audience of just who you've run into or anything
Yeah.
like that?
I
Yeah.
think I would start with like many people listening might hear the stories like at luxury hotels, people ask for like blue M&Ms only or
Yeah.
like ridiculous things. I will say that doesn't happen as often as you would think. There are some people that want only blue M&Ms, just to give you an example. But most people, and again, I've been in the luxury space, my entire career, so that's kind of where my knowledge comes from. Most people, honestly, they want a great suite. They want to be left alone. They want a couple bottles of water and some fresh fruit. They want to work out. They want to be with their kids and their family. And they just might be coming from city to city and they choose a really high end hotel. Maybe it's independent, maybe it's a big brand because of the exclusivity. And they just want a little bit of downtime. Those things do happen. You do get some crazy requests, but 95% of the time it's clean and simple, and they're paying a premium, to get great service, great food, and quite frankly, to be left alone. Um, but I think the fun part of the business comes like when you get to peel the curtain back a little bit, and because the three of us, and I would assume everyone listening is into sports and kind of the business of sports. I think in LZ, I haven't told you this, but one of the really cool, I guess, elements of working at city hotels, if you work at a Four Seasons, if you work at a Ritz Carlton, if you work at a high end independent, is the business of actual sports team travel. Okay. And I've been fortunate enough when I worked in Boston, when I worked in Philadelphia, when I worked in New York City, we did a lot of business with MLB, NHL, and NBA teams coming to play that local team, right?
Hmm.
XYZ team comes in to play the Red Sox. They stay in downtown Boston for like 3 to 4 nights, right? You're a hockey team coming to Philadelphia. You're the LA Kings. You might be staying for one night or you might be staying for 3 nights just based on how the schedule kind of rolls out. Um, and what I always thought was really cool was when you have one team leaving and one team coming at the exact same time. Okay.
Oh.
So an absolute nightmare for the hotel. It's a complete nightmare for the hotel. You know, a lot of these teams will have special requests, right? The coach will get a suite, or the players need to be on a floor away from other guests, or a lot of different things. Clean out the mini bar. The variety of requests really ranges from A to Z. And remember, NBA players, you know, they could be 19 years old, right? So they're staying at a Four Seasons or a Ritz Carlton, and they can't even drink at the bar, which is a story for another day. But it's kind of cool to see a hockey team leave and a basketball team come in, because in some weird way, there's some type of connection. You could have the New Jersey Devils checking in and the Golden State Warriors checking out, and most of the hockey guys probably know who Steph Curry is or Draymond Green is, but it's the third line center who went to college in Minnesota, whose brother played college basketball with so and so. There's always some type of connection, and for whatever reason, the athletes recognize the athletes, and then you have this meetup essentially in the lobby of a hotel, and then you got some people outside, you know, looking to take some pictures and looking to do some meet and greets, things like that. But I always really thought that was kind of cool, because they're not really used to crossing paths with other athletes, right? When you go to a hockey game, you know, you might see a couple guys pregame, but you're there to work, right? You're there to go to work and try to win a game. But when it's 2:30 in the afternoon, or in some cases 2:30 in the morning, you know, you have a little downtime, and they're outside their element. You know, when you're at the rink, when you're at the stadium, for whatever sport it might be, you're those guys. Some people forget those guys are at work, right? They're there to do a job. But when you're in the hotel lobby, you know, all bets are off, right? All bets are off. So I always thought it was really interesting to see them interact in the lobby, you know, working at the front desk, working in operations and things like that. But, you know, working at the hotel, you get exposed to a few things that normal people wouldn't see, right? You see the room service orders. You can go behind the curtain and look at their bill. You can see what they're spending. Not only what their bill is, but did they buy 17 packs of M&Ms? Did they buy a bottle of champagne? Did they buy, you know, enough food for like 17 individuals, and it's actually just for one person? I always found that really interesting. Like, man, these guys can eat, right?
What movies they rented?
What movies they rented. And listen, you know, a hamburger at my hotel or a luxury hotel in New York City is probably like $75 plus plus. So when you look at these bills or these invoices that these individuals ring up, I mean, obviously they're making a lot of money so they can pay for it, and the team subsidize some of that. But it's always interesting, kind of what they spend their money on, at different hotels, and it definitely works differently when you're at a city hotel, when you're there for 1 or 2 nights. When they come down to Florida, let's say, or maybe they go to the Caribbean, or maybe they go to California with their family, you know, all bets are off, right? It's like an all expenses vacation. In many cases, they're there for 24 to 48 hours. So it might be a little bit on the lighter side, but I always found that interesting. Like, is it alcohol? Is it M&Ms? Is it cheeseburgers? Are they
Blue
eating
M&Ms.
healthy?
All
Or
of the
are
above.
they
All of the
or are
above.
they getting a salad with chicken? In most cases, the hockey guys are pretty clean eaters, but the other athletes, I found more of the chicken parm, burgers, fries, soda than the healthy stuff.
Okay,
Hockey
so
guys
that's
are clean, huh? Interesting.
Yeah,
Hmm.
hockey guys are very simple and straightforward, and they're kind of a creature of habit. I think the basketball guys are a little bit different. And then baseball is a little bit different because they stay in the city for 3 to 4 days. You know what I mean?
Right.
And think about how much downtime they have as baseball players. You know, basketball and hockey, they get the morning shoot around or the morning skate. You know, baseball players get to the arena, the field, whatever you want to call it, a couple hours before the game. But you know, if they're up at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, I mean, they have a lot of time to kill. You know,
Yeah.
so they might go in Boston. They might go to Faneuil Hall. They might go shopping. They
Mhm.
might have their kids with them. So there's a lot of variety between kind of what they do between the time they check in to the time they check out.
Nice. All right, Mike, it's time to get to I appreciate those stories. That's great. Let's start helping our listeners plan for the national with maybe some tips and tricks. If people are planning to go to the national now, they're already going to have a tough time getting a hotel. Like me and Nick started planning, geez, probably like let's call it a month ago, and it was even difficult for us. So, do you have any advice for somebody? And it doesn't even have to be the national, but like you're trying to go to a city, everything's booked. What sort of advice do you have on trying to find a hotel? Things are booked. You're trying to make phone calls.
Yeah.
What advice?
Call me directly. My number is 56. No. So the first thing, and this won't surprise you, but it's June 9th, right? Tomorrow's June 10th. You're late. You're late in the game for 2024. I would actually urge some of your listeners, like once the July conference wraps up, you should already be looking at Chicago 2025. 100%. 100%. And the main reason I say that is because what hotels are going to do, the easy math equation between for a hotel in the area of Cleveland or in the area of Chicago is if you have 300 rooms, 800 rooms, or even 1,500 rooms, you're trying to build occupancy at a hotel. And what hotels typically do is the further out we are from the conference, let's just say we're 12 to 14 months away from the conference, the room rate might be a little bit lower. And then incrementally, right, as the occupancy goes up, you know what else goes up? The price tag. And someone might have a room in downtown Cleveland this weekend or next month, whatever it may be, for $225 at a really nice hotel. And then if I were to go tomorrow and try to book that same hotel, it could be 3, 4, 5x. So the person right next door to you might be paying $225, and just to use a number, you might be paying $725 for the same exact room. It just depends on when you booked it and even how you booked it. So I'm a big believer on booking early. Same thing with air travel. Typically, prices don't come down. I would say as soon as you have your set itinerary for Chicago next year, I would look into a hotel as soon as possible because you really might be able to get a deal. And as it builds, right, because your convention is happening, but we all know this, there's probably a pharmaceutical event going on. There could be a baseball game going on. There could be a corporate sales meeting. There could be, who knows, right? There could be a big wedding happening. You just never know what's going to happen. So typically speaking, I don't think you're ever going to get burned per se by booking early. And if you ever did, you could call the hotel and say, listen, I booked my room. My room rate you quoted me was $299. I just saw on your website you're selling $225. That's not fair. Please match my rate. And 99.9% of the time, the hotels will do that.
Ooh,
That's a really good hack. Okay.
that's a great act.
I didn't know that. It's almost like the opposite of a rain check. It's like a reverse rain check.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I would say, typically with airfare and hotels, typically the price doesn't go down. Some people I'm sure out there have had a scenario where, the price does go down, but call the hotel directly, act like an adult, be nice, don't yell and scream. Just say, hey, listen, here's my confirmation number. I'm coming in for ABC event. I booked at 300. You're now selling 250. I think matching the rate would be the right thing to do. And I think 99% of the time the hotels would do that.
Wow. Is there anything you could say, like, do you have any like double super duper secret rooms, that you put like always have like one room open just in case somebody shows up? Like, is there any sneaky way that you can get in somewhere?
Listen, like if my advice for people that are coming this July in Cleveland, I would just say be persistent, like keep double checking hotel websites. Like for example, I'm going to San Antonio tomorrow and I had a hotel booked for the last 3 months. And I just realized my hotel was about a mile from the convention center. And I don't know if anyone's been to San Antonio in June, but it's like 99 degrees. So I actually canceled my hotel a mile from the convention center and I rebooked at a hotel connected to the convention center. Now, listen, I'm paying twice the price, but I just need the flexibility to go back and forth to take phone calls and get some work done. And I can't be spending my time walking a mile or trying to get an Uber with 50,000 people to go to dinners, to go to events. I need to be close to the convention center, but also close to my room so I can get business done while I'm on the road. So in that case, I say that because inventory is always fluctuating. Okay. People get sick. People have kids. People's plans change. So just because you can't get a room in Cleveland today doesn't mean you can't get a room in Cleveland tomorrow. You just might have to work for it. You just might have to work for it a little bit.
That's a really good tip, Mike.
So keep an eye. The refresh button is your friend.
Yeah,
makes sense.
The refresh button is always your friend. Inventory is always changing. And listen, hotels in Las Vegas or some top tier cities, Nick, to your point, they might always keep a room or two on the side for a VIP. It happens. In my experience, my job is to fill all the rooms, right?
Yeah.
So I'm looking to fill all the rooms as quickly as I can, 365 days a year. Yep. And like I tell my team, if we have to turn people away, that's really good marketing.
Yeah, makes sense. So, yeah, I agree. So, Mike, I've got this this crazy thing I discovered like 10 years ago, the upgrade sandwich. Somebody told me about this in Vegas and I didn't believe him. And it was like a magic wand. I believe it was the Paris. Yeah, it was the Paris.
Yeah.
Used to go there every year for, a conference, whatever, like a 10,000 person conference. And I was kind of afraid. So I stuck a 20 in there. I was like, I don't want to like lose 100 for nothing. So I
Yeah.
think I stuck a 20 and it was, it's called a sandwich because the middle part of the sandwich is the money. And then I put my license and my credit card in there. And then they told me to say, please let me know if you have any complimentary upgrades, and you hand them the upgrade sandwich. It worked beautifully. I had a view of the Bellagio fountains. I had a bowl of fruit in my room, and it was the same exact price that I had already paid. And I was like really thrilled. So
Okay.
is this a thing outside of Vegas at all, or is that like the only place this works?
So listen, it's totally a thing. I'd be lying if I said it wasn't. It's totally a thing. Just remember, like, the best hotels, right? Like Vegas runs like super high occupancy, right? So they're going conference after conference after conference. But remember, like, even if you're 80% occupancy of a 1,000 room hotel, right? Think about how many empty rooms you have at a property. So people always call me for upgrades. I'm going to Dallas on a conference. I'm taking my kids to Atlanta. I want to go to Hawaii. I said, listen, I can probably get you in the door, but the most important person during that whole transaction is the front desk agent. 100%.
Huh.
100%, because they're looking at their inventory, obviously 24/7. But I would say something along the lines of, listen, you gave the person a 20. That's going to be the best advice I could give you, because money always talks and cash is king. But hey, I just brought my family from Boston. It's been a miserable winter. I've never been to Las Vegas. I've heard so much about it.
Hmm.
Create a little rapport with the front desk agent, because they're in such transactional mode that, especially in big cities like Orlando and Vegas, their job is
Huh.
to check people in over and over and over. Where are you from? Do you live in the area? How long have you worked at the hotel? Be nice, be a good person.
Right.
Look them in the eye, ask good questions, and say, you know what? I've been traveling on business the past 4 weeks. I've never been to Las Vegas. I'm just tired. I just want a nice room. I just want a clean room on a high floor with a view. Do you have anything open tonight? I would appreciate it if you could take a look for me. And if you say it that way, it would help to give them a 20 or maybe even a 50. But if you say it that way and you're genuine about it and you create a little rapport, don't just say like, hey, do you have any upgrades available? Like, get to know the person a little bit,
Right.
and you'd be surprised what the outcome might be.
Interesting.
Nick,
Yeah. I
Nick
mean, actually,
isn't.
yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Make your point.
No, I was going to say, yeah, actually care, right? No, go ahead, Elsie.
Yeah.
No, they actually care. So, Mike, Nick and I recorded an episode a while back on just etiquette to have at a card show. And we talked about exactly what you're talking about when you go up to a table and you're trying to buy cards or you're trying to sell cards, like just how, like, have some small talk, get to know the person, like
Yeah.
don't have it be so transactional. So everybody,
Yeah.
it applies elsewhere too.
Yeah.
All right. So,
I mean,
yeah, go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
listen, like you said, it could be, for me in Florida, it's Publix, it's a supermarket, it's anywhere. If you have a little rapport and you're a little bit more genuine, especially in today's day and age where everything's so transactional and the prices are so high,
Mhm.
you just never know what suite, Nick, you might be sitting in the next time you go to a big conference or a major city.
There
Yeah,
we go.
I am never not going to do it.
The
Bring
worst
a
they can say
50
is
with
no.
you.
Yeah, the worst they
Inflation,
can say is
Nick.
no.
That $20 doesn't go
Yeah,
far
it's got to
anymore.
be
You
a
got to bring a
50 now.
50 with you next time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Scoop it. Yeah.
uh, Mike, do you or even your hotel or even hotels you've worked for in the past brands, do you frown on these apps and these websites that are out there, or do you like the fact that you have like the Expedias and hotels.com and all of these and whichever way, I guess if you fall on you don't frown on them, like would you actually recommend any to maybe any of the listeners that are better than others?
So that'll be one of the panel questions on Tuesday, actually, that we've been kind of talking. So hotels have been talking about this for so long, right?
Ah,
How long has Expedia been out there?
mm,
Expedia, let's talk about that channel, just because I think most of your listeners will be familiar with Expedia because
hmm
it's a global brand. So I have a little bit of a different take. Like in the hotel world, a lot of people would say, you know what? We want our customers to call the hotel. We want our customers to book on the website. We want our customers to book direct, which is 1000% true, right? But let's do some simple math. If you have a 1,000-room hotel in Orlando and you're 80% occupied, right? That means you have 200 rooms that are sitting empty. 200 rooms that are sitting empty. And a little behind the curtain math, a lot of hotels and hotel companies make 70% profit on just the guest room. So it's usually a massive, massive driver of the overall like revenue ecosystem for a hotel. So I like to look at it a little bit differently. If I was 80% occupied and I could increase my occupancy by another 5%, 6%, 7% with a channel like Expedia, yes, you're paying them a commission, right? Your commission is, let's call it 18 to 20%. That's a round number. But does it cut into your margins? Absolutely. Do you want your customers to book direct? 100%. But in luxury, especially, we can tell how much money people are spending at a hotel or resort outside of the guest room. So in luxury hotels, you're typically going to get spa spend. People are going to buy a golf shirt. If I was with you all in person, we'd probably go to the bar and have a drink and order a snack. Some people order room service. You know, in my property per se, in Palm Beach, we have 8 restaurants. So I look at it kind of from 2 ways. Like, I think Expedia is a good thing to bring customers into your ecosystem. Now, where I think hotels can really hit their mark is, I always like to say, let Expedia bring me the customer the first time, but then it's our job to make them an O Palm Beach customer the next time. So I look at it from more of like the marketing funnel. Give me a little bit more exposure. I mean, think about how many, it's probably billions of dollars that Expedia spends on marketing globally, right? So bring me that customer the first time. And then I think for any hotel, whether it's 2 stars or 5 stars, give them amazing service. And most likely they'll probably come to you direct the second time.
You know, that just gave me a great analogy for the sports card world. You know, we all do business on eBay, and eBay takes their 10, 20% fee, right? That's almost like our Expedia. You do business with somebody on eBay, stick your card in the package and do business directly with them the next time if you can. You know, it's a very similar philosophy.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Mike, you might not have anything here, but is there anything else we're not thinking of in terms of helping people prepare, you know, to be at the National or to get a hotel or maybe transportation or, you know, something like that? Like, is there anything that we're missing or we haven't asked you?
I mean, we talked about booking early. That's a big one, you know, for hotels and travel. I think that would suit a lot of your customers, a lot of your attendees quite well. You know, I think from my world, you know, I'm kind of a rookie when it comes to like the space that you all are talking about on a weekly basis. But, you know, from what I'm doing, it's always like, you know, arrive a little bit early. You know, in luxury, it's kind of like you got to look the part, right? You got to build the rapport. Yes, the days of like exchanging business cards is a little dated these days. Everything's more LinkedIn, more virtual, more digital. But I think that does hold true, and I think that there's a lot of different ways that this big organization putting on this conference can really monetize the event. And if they're looking to grow, there's a lot of different channels these days where you can attract more followers. You know, obviously, I would assume there's a fee to come to the event in July, and it probably varies. You know, I would think Chicago is probably a little bit more expensive than Cleveland. Also, for travelers, I would definitely recommend going to the Cleveland Convention and Visitors Bureau's website. So many people have heard of like Cleveland Rocks. That's kind of one of their taglines. On Friday, I went to their website just because I'm not overly familiar with Cleveland. And within 5 clicks, I was able to pull up a map of all the hotels in downtown Cleveland. Okay. Then with 3 or 4 more clicks, you can see restaurants by type of food. You can see how far you are from the lake. You can see they have a scale, what you can walk to. So I just thought to myself, and you both can tell me if I'm incorrect, but I would think people in the summertime would bring their families to this type of event.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
You know, kids are coming all shapes and sizes, right? So what are people doing when they're not at the conference, right? They're going to restaurants, they're going to parks, they're going to museums. I don't know the city of Cleveland that well. I was blown away by some of the hotel pricing, to be honest with you. And I think your actual event is taking place a little bit outside the city, if I'm not mistaken.
It is,
so
yes.
Yeah.
That just adds a whole nother element to this, right? Like, what hotels are within walking distance, if any? what restaurants are within walking distance, if any. And these cities will give you, within 5 or 6 clips, like, brew pubs in the area, restaurants for families, attractions during a rainy day, museums to check out, Cleveland like a local. Are the or I shouldn't say Indians, are the Guardians in town? Like, what is happening? When I booked my trip to San Antonio, the first thing I looked at was what's going on in the city, right? We have a client dinner tomorrow night. So we're taking a client to this really cool venue that you can't get into on the weekends, but because it's a Monday night, we got a great price, and we can take clients, we can give them like a little exclusive access to something that they probably can't get in their hometown. So I would definitely recommend visiting the Cleveland Convention and Visitors Bureau website just to see what's going on. And then in 2025, Chicago being a bigger city, they'll have a little bit more information. But I was blown away, guys, on what Cleveland has to offer this time of year, right? Summer is probably in winter, but there's a lot going on that I think people don't necessarily know about.
They got the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, right? That's Cleveland.
Yeah, like that's their moneymaker, I think.
Yep.
But there looked to be some really cool restaurants. There was a couple like jogging trails that I saw, stuff to do with kids, like stuff to do on a rainy day, stuff to do for adults only. So like they really thought about like all their travelers. And I think where you're going to be is what, 15, 20, 25 minutes maybe outside of downtown. So, if I were going, I'd go to the show during the day and then maybe go into Cleveland during the evening just to see like a city that I'm not overly familiar with, especially if I was coming with my family.
Cool.
Awesome.
Yeah. Book early, everybody. Book early.
Yeah, that's a moral of the story.
Yeah, that's what me and Nick are going to do right after this show for next year. Mike, switching gears a little bit. We've been focusing on people going to attend the National and trying to find hotels specifically, and then all your recommendations are on restaurants and what to do in the city. But what about for the actual people who are putting on a show? So a lot of our listeners, they're either in charge of putting on a local show that maybe happens every weekend, or maybe it's a monthly, or we've even had some other guests on that do kind of these bigger kind of quarterly ones. What recommendations do you have for them on finding a good location? Maybe it's at your hotel. Maybe it's at one of your previous hotels. Maybe it's at a convention center. Do you have any recommendations for them on our tips and tricks on what to look for, what to ask for?
Sure. I mean, honestly, the first thing I would say would be come with some flexibility in your dates, right? If you're locked into a certain date range, then you're going to be locked into the pricing that hotel or that city has to offer, right? Just to give you like a real-time example, where I am in Palm Beach, we're typically slow, like right after Memorial Day weekend. So we go after a lot of corporations that need a little incentive on the guest room and food and beverage pricing, right? A lot of our guests in the winter are paying $1,000 a night. Not everybody can pay that. So post July 4th weekend, post Memorial Day weekend, post Labor Day weekend, you could get it 70 to 80% off the typical rates if your dates are flexible. So that's one thing I think with hotels, convention centers, trade shows, things like that, right? You both know this, but if you come to Florida in July, it's going to be less expensive than it is in January. Think about the climate, think about the weather. Also, when you're booking and organizing and thinking about logistics, I find this very simple, but I feel like people in travel forget about this certain topic. Make sure there's not a huge citywide in Chicago before you book your program, because you're going to be paying double for hotel rooms and then your attendance is going to drop. Okay. So a lot of these cities will put out like a 36-month, 48-month, even a 5 to 7 year calendar of like, okay, in Chicago in 2025 in August, we're going to welcome the Association of Medical Professionals, right? And it's 67,000 people, and they're all going to be downtown on the Magnificent Mile, right? Just as an example. If you have a budget, that time and date might not work for you. So if you can go to Chicago in the wintertime, you're going to pay less than the summertime. Obvious, supply and demand. Think about holidays, think about school vacations, think about different demand drivers in the city. Weekday, weekend makes a big difference, and have those conversations with your hotel person, your convention person, your intermediary, whoever you're using to work on logistics. I would say number one, if you have flexibility on your dates, that could be a nice cost savings for you. Now, that being said, not everyone has that opportunity. Right. And then maybe second, just start a relationship with the hotel, with the convention center, with the city. right? Don't make it a little less transactional. I know we used that phrase a couple times, but when people call me and they establish a little bit of rapport and, maybe they ask about my family or they ask about my career, I'm much, much, much more willing to give them a better deal than someone that just asks me for what we call in the business rate, dates, and space, right? If you're calling me about what's the rate, what's the date, what space am I getting, then I can make it as black and white as you can be. But if you tell me I'm coming from New Jersey, I'm coming with my family. Last year I went to the Four Seasons. I'd really like to be in Palm Beach. I'd really like to be in Chicago. Then the hotels or the locations can give you more of a customized proposal. So for those people dealing with logistics and setup and contracts, be flexible and get to know your facility, get to know your hotel, get to know your destination. Do some research. Do some research on Cleveland before you book Cleveland. It might help you in the negotiating process.
Yeah. Start following them to Starbucks. Hey, what's up? I hear that you manage this hotel. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Uh, all right. So we're gonna wrap this up with a final question. LZ told me that you're a huge sports guy. We're all Bostonians here. We love the Boston sports team. So we figured we'd make this fun. So we wanted to ask you, who do you have on your Mount Rushmore of Boston sports? So that's 4 people. Okay.
Sure.
That's
you can pick
it.
4. That's it.
Only
Sure.
4, Mike.
Who are your 4 Boston sports all time? Living,
All right.
deceased, whatever.
This will not be on my hospitality podcast on Tuesday morning. So, okay. So in no particular order, LZ knows this, but I'm a big hockey guy, Nick. Grew up playing hockey. Obviously love the Bruins. I like the history of the game. Kind of crazy that the Florida Panthers are 3 wins away from the cup, but I'm going to go Bobby Orr.
Mm.
I'm going to go Bobby Orr. I'm actually looking at a picture of my loft of Bobby Orr from, I shouldn't say years ago, I should say decades ago. So obviously a little bit before our time, right? But we know how he impacted the game.
Oh yeah.
We know
Of
how he
course.
impacted the city. Crazy to me that those guys back in the day wouldn't wear helmets, didn't wear helmets, weren't allowed to wear helmets, whatever the rules and regs were. But Bobby Orr was special, right? A lot of kids in the area grew up trying to be like Bobby Orr. So he would be
That's the easy one.
for sure.
That's the easy one, Mike.
And just
That's
for people,
the
if you're traveling to Boston, we got a nice statue of Bobby Orr outside the Garden. It's pretty awesome.
Yes.
I mean, I'm gonna go LZ. This might be as what they call chalk. I'm gonna go 4 here, but I don't think you can do a Mount Rushmore in Boston sports and not have Larry Bird on the list, right?
Ooh.
I would debate anyone on that, but even though I don't remember him per se like people older than us do, but I do remember him back in the day at the old Garden, doing his thing. Unfortunately, a lot of my memories were Larry and his bad back. Unfortunately,
lying on the floor.
That's so funny you say that. That's exactly how I remember him because I was born in 1980.
On his stomach.
Yeah, and I was a kid, and I'm like, Dad, why is it? That's so funny.
I heard that when he would travel on the team flight, I heard he would lay in the aisle just because his back was so bad.
Ugh.
And now that we get a little bit older, right? Like we all know that a bad back is crippling.
Mm-hmm.
So, from the hoops standpoint,
Orr and Bird.
Yep. And then again, like you can't go Boston, Mount Rushmore without my guy David Ortiz. Like you just can't do it. You can't do it. I mean, what that guy did for the city, what he did for that team, what he did for the region. Especially as someone that came up with the Twins, and I don't know if he was an afterthought, but he wasn't a A+ prospect. I could be wrong, but I think we got him for relatively nothing. And talk about making his mark in a city and a destination, and big hit after big hit after big hit. How many times did that guy deliver in the clutch? Right, you can't even count on 2 hands. But him and Manny, who I'm leaving off my list, but David Ortiz was my favorite Red Sox growing up.
Okay, I think I know the last one, but let's hear it anyways.
I hope it is. Yeah,
I bet I know too. Or we're ending the pod.
Yeah, like I hate to just go kind of like on script here, but I heard there's a celebration going on in a couple days, so I had to go with my guy TB12. I mean, man.
Okay. Phew. All right, just making sure.
I wanted to save the best for last. Even though I was a Bledsoe guy growing up, right? Getting autographs in the parking lot when we were kids, waiting by the car in the old school lot with Bill Parcells back in the day.
The Rentham State Hospital is where we used to.
I wish I could find all those Bledsoe, Curtis Martin, Ben Coates autographs from 1990-ish. they'd be worth some money this time of year. But listen, obviously, like, you can't have a Mount Rushmore without Brady. He's obviously special. He's done so much for the city, so much for the team. We all remember the days of half-empty stadiums and being, all kidding aside, we were the laughingstock of the NFL. And for him to do what he's done in the area, obviously with all the winning, all the championships, is certainly second to none.
So speaking of being the laughing stock, so I've talked before about how I grew up in Foxborough, and so did Mike. So we both grew up in Foxborough, where the Patriots are from. We were such a laughing stock growing up that the people that took tickets and ripped tickets at the front gate were actually high school students, volunteers. And all you had to do was walk up to a line of a student that you knew and hand them a blank piece of paper, and they would rip it for you and let you in the games. That is what we're talking about here. That is how much we were
it was
a laughing stock.
sad state of affairs.
Yeah, but it was good for us. We had plenty to do growing up in Foxborough. Lots of games. So.
I remember waiting outside by the cars one day, and Bill Parcells came over, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I just want an autograph." And he's like, "These guys suck."
Oh, he said that? I don't remember that.
Yeah,
I don't remember that story.
Something.
Oh, that is exactly what Bill Parcells would say.
Yeah, that is.
That's awesome.
I hope those four names. I hope you agree.
Yeah, well, I'm going to
feel
talk
pretty good about all of them.
Two that you left off, and this is why Boston's hard. You left off Bill Russell.
Yep.
And you left off Ted Williams.
Yeah.
Well, listen, LZ, real quick. I don't disagree with you. I was born in 1981. So I kind of weighted my decisions more on people that I remember, like obviously like Ortiz and Brady. Like I have no hesitation on Ted Williams and Bill Russell. And my dad would probably be disappointed in me for leaving them off the list. But just because they were before my time, I had to go post, maybe post 1970-ish or late 70s, early 80s. So that's what makes Boston so great and so special, is the Mount Rushmore could be a lot more than four.
It's a lot.
Yeah,
it's a lot.
For sure.
Yep. All right, awesome. Mike. Well, good job. Good job on the Mount Rushmore. All right. Well, we're going to close it out. And we always like to give our guests just time at the end to talk about, like, how can people get in touch with O Palm Beach, learn more about it? How can they get in touch with you, Mike, if they have some event or they want to, book some travel? The floor is yours for people to get in touch with you.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun. I think I went over the time limit. So if I owe you anything financially, let me know. But
you owe us a suite.
We're heading down.
I'd love to catch up maybe post event and just get your feedback on, kind of how everything went from a travel perspective. But just getting in touch with myself or the hotel, easiest way to do that would be O Palm Beach Resort and Spa. It's spelled EAU, Palm Beach Resort and Spa. We're located on Palm Beach Island. It's, a 3-hour flight from the New England area. It's a little bit less than that from like places like New York, Newark, Philadelphia. And obviously, as you come down the eastern seaboard down to DC, through the Carolinas and Atlanta, we're a little bit closer than that. Again, maybe LZ, you can put it in the show notes, but my name is Michael Oakes, Oakes. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm very fortunate that I get to travel a lot, go to different conferences and events across the country. And, it gives me the ability to obviously meet a lot of different people in the travel arena. And, what you all are doing, just remember what you all are doing, putting on these conferences and events affects a lot of different people that you will meet in Cleveland, and probably more of those individuals that you probably won't meet in Cleveland because they're more behind the scenes. So anything that you all can do as you grow this podcast, as you grow these events to support travel and just overall hospitality would be fantastic for many, many people listening.
Excellent.
All right. Well, thanks, Mike. Go visit Mike at O Palm Beach. It is legit paradise. Try to get there once a year. It's incredible. So please visit. Please say hello to Mike if you do. But hey, Mike, thank you very much for joining. It was great having you on. And until next time, everybody, we'll see you.
Thanks
Bye.
again.